Hi, everybody, and welcome to a special Tuesday edition of Eye on the Eagles, your all-access pass to all things Avila Athletics. I'm Sports Information Director Tim Hackett. Our first guest on this Tuesday morning, head bowling coach Paul Wolfe. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Tim.
It's been a busy last couple of weeks for you. It's kind of an evergreen post on my part because I know that this is just a very busy time of year, but end of the road is in sight for you guys. Final tournament of the season coming up this weekend. How's it feeling now that you're close to the end of the road?
It's a relief. It's been a very long season. The bowling season, just in general, is a long season. So by the time you get to postseason, you better hope you got something left in the tank.
How much do you have left in the tank getting ready for this final weekend?
I'm feeling pretty good. I mean, our teams are ready to practice, and they've been practicing this week, and we'll be ready to go.
This past weekend was something unique to this sport. It's not the only sport in the NAIA that does this, but you had a regional bowling qualifier because the KCAC at present does not have enough teams for the KCAC tournament champion to get an automatic berth to the national championships compared to, let's say, women's basketball, who we'll hear from next on the show today. That's how that tournament works. Tournament champs go to NAIA. That's not how it works in the KCAC, at least not now. So the last couple of years, it has been this regional qualifier, if you will, where teams from the KCAC, the GPAC, and the AMC all come to one, I want to say neutral site, but all one independent location to compete for a tournament title and an automatic spot to the NAIA. So it's a unique event and one that we're still learning about how it all works.
Yeah, it's difficult because you've got a bunch of teams there and you're all fighting for one spot in one weekend. So it's up for grabs and anybody can win it. This weekend, in my opinion, the two best teams in the field, maybe not on the women's side, but on the men's side, definitely grabbed those spots. So and they were the two teams that deserved to go. They were both undefeated. So in William Woods with the women, that was kind of an upset because they're really a brand new program on the women's side. And on the men's side, it was Hastings, and they've been good all year. Actually, for the last 2 years, they've been really. I'm waiting for all their guys to graduate because I'm tired of getting beat by them. But on the women's side, William Woods was very impressive from the start of the season when we first saw them to now. They've improved greatly. And they might be someone to watch at NAIA Nationals.
There's two things from that I want to make sure I ask you. First of all, I think I mentioned this to you right after the fact, but it's a score one for the Momentum in Sports is real crowd. I'm very much not a part of that, but the two teams that won the event this Sunday started off on Saturday with 20 team games and then moving into elimination play, bracket play on Sunday. The teams that won the event did not lose a match on Sunday. Now, there was a 5-game series, so they dropped a couple of games here or there, but they did not lose a match. They went undefeated the whole day rather than having to climb back out of the elimination bracket to get back in there. I think it says something for, getting hot and playing well,
Absolutely.
Riding that momentum, because both of those teams seemed to do that all day Sunday.
Yeah, they did. And the teams that, were runner-up were both coming out of the loser's bracket or the elimination bracket, and there were a couple teams that had their backs against the wall early and fought through that elimination bracket, and getting through that elimination bracket is a long day. Sure. So it's definitely an advantage to keep winning in a format like that.
And does that format help or hurt at all? Because neither of those teams that won were the top seed. In other words, they were not the teams that bowled the best on Saturday. It's not like they were the 7 seed or what have you. They were both top 4, so it's not like they had bad days on Saturday. But like we said, they had much better days on Sunday where they didn't lose.
Honestly, I don't think it does. It helps maybe in your first match because if you're a higher seed, you're bowling a lower seed. But once everything gets going, I don't think it really matters. No, I think Saturday's just a place for seeding and seeing what you get. But as far as that goes for that carrying over on Sunday, I don't think it really, there may be a little momentum in there, but I don't think it really matters. To me, they're just two brand new tournaments. So it doesn't really make a difference to me.
One of the other things that I was curious about was something that you said earlier was, this event means so much. The winner of the tournament gets something out of it, and it's more than just the plaque from the KCAC. you get an automatic berth to the NAIA tournament, it could be the only tournament you win all year. And like you said, William Woods is a super new program, and this was their best weekend.
This was their only win.
Right.
This is the only win they've ever had, first in their program's history. So that's a big win. If you're going to win one, that's the one.
Exactly. And does that change, I guess, did that change for your teams or for any other team going into an event like this, knowing that there's a lot more at stake once we get to the elimination part than there normally is? Because that's kind of something that you taught me as we got into this whole thing over the last couple of years. I went into those tournaments thinking, all right, Saturday was there for seeding, getting everything situated for Sunday, and that's what really counts, if you will. But over the course of the season, that isn't the case. Sundays are really just for it. I don't want to say they don't matter, but as you pointed out, the Saturdays mean a whole lot more when you're accumulating standings points, rankings points, things of that nature, and the Sunday is just kind of a bonus on top of that. That's not how this weekend was.
No, that's the exact opposite of how this weekend worked. No, it does. Saturday really had no bearing on Sunday. So, everything comes down to winning matches on Sunday. That's all it comes down to. And yeah, I kind of gathered both teams up and said, look, this is your last chance for postseason. So, let's really, really concentrate and really focus on the task at hand, especially on Sunday.
One of the things, flashing back a couple of weeks, something that I wanted to talk about with you publicly on the show that we haven't talked about yet. The tournament in Lawrence a couple of weeks ago, I was there on Sunday for a part of the afternoon, and anybody that wanted to talk to me, whether they were affiliated with our team and our university or not, and I was walking up and down, watching the women, then moving over to watch the men, and back and forth, whatever, I kept overhearing over the course of the day. And again, these were people that just would talk to me apropos of nothing, and they just all, literally everybody that either talked to me or I overheard said how that was the most difficult tournament they've either been a part of, watched, coached, whatever. And the fact that was, and again, I'm not talking just two people that I heard from our team, for example. It's a pretty good sample size by the time that day ended. I guess, what was your experience with that tournament, and what makes it so difficult compared to anything else?
You mean the Lawrence tournament?
Yeah, the Lawrence tournament.
Well, it was two different tournaments over,
Right.
In 2 different days. The condition that was put out on Sunday, I thought Saturday was super hard. But the condition that was put out on Sunday for 7-team games, so you've got 10 people per lane per pair beating up that condition, and it was a short condition, which means it's going to break down very fast. It made it very, very tough, and it was. I don't think any of the women averaged over 200, which is very unusual. At least it's always somebody does. I don't think anybody did. I think Kinsey Miller from Baker was maybe the high, and I think she averaged 197.
Sure.
On the guys' side, I think a couple guys averaged 200. It was, if you ask my guys, they'll tell you that tournament and this past weekend were the 2 hardest conditions they saw all year. And I'd have to agree with them.
Why would that be the case? Not that they're lying or anything, but why is that done on that has to be done on purpose, hasn't it?
Well, I don't know if it's necessarily done on purpose. There's a lot of factors to it. There's the playing surface. There's the topography of the playing surface. If you're in a very high lineage bowling center, you're going to have more friction in the track area. No matter what they put out, the characteristics of the lane are always going to play through, no matter what kind of condition you put out. So. You put out a fairly tough condition on a bad lane surface, and I won't say bad, but the topography's pretty bumpy. It's going to make it a lot harder.
And do you think that is part of? I don't know, because that tournament, it's not like it was mattered more than anything else, if you will. It's not an automatic berth like we just saw this past weekend, is what I mean. So is that designed to be more challenging for a reason, or is it just because a lot of those factors at play?
I don't know if it's a reason. I think most of the patterns we bowl on are fairly hard. Yeah. We haven't bowled on anything easy where everybody was striking all season. So I don't know if they're necessarily put out on purpose to be hard, but they just are.
That is something that you've told me a couple of times over the course of the years, that these consistently, the tournaments that you guys have gone to this year, they've consistently been difficult, if not outright hard for, and that's not just because, you know, it's hard for everybody. And yourself as a former professional bowler, being able to say that, honestly, this is a hard condition, harder than things that you have seen in your career, that I think that says a lot.
But and having said that, though, but you'll always find someone that's going to hit it, and someone that's going to average 220. That's not always the case, but it's usually the case where someone's, say everybody's averaging 190. There's going to be someone that's going to average 200. There's just always that somebody will find something that they can play with. So that happens on almost every condition. It's going to fit somebody.
And is that just somebody's talent rising above, or you get a little bit lucky? Are you intelligent enough that you can figure out what you have to do to attack it?
It's a factor of all those things. Sometimes the smarter, more seasoned player is going to see something that maybe his peers don't see, and you can tell who those guys are and those girls are. It's fairly obvious, and they'll try and share it with their teammates. Sure. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. There's always, like I said, there's always going to be that one person that's going to figure it out. And it's like I told you before. There's a safe at the end of every bowling center, and somebody figures out the combination to that safe.
Everybody else is trying to protect it, I guess.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say they're trying to protect it. They just can't figure out what the combination is.
I should have said it felt like the bowling center sometimes is trying to protect it because
sometimes
making it challenging on everybody.
Well, I don't know if it's the bowling center necessarily. Sometimes it's who's ever hosting the tournament or what have you. And sometimes these patterns, no matter what you put out thinking, oh, well, this is going to – like if I looked at that pattern for this weekend, just on paper, I looked at the pattern when they handed it out, and I looked at it and I go, well, this isn't going to be that hard. I was completely wrong about how hard that played. If you looked at it, it looked like a fairly easy pattern, and it did not play easy at all.
What could change that?
Well, you got 10 guys or 10 girls throwing the ball all over the lane, and once you throw one ball, and that changes the pattern. So if you've got them all over the place, that's really going to change the break point and how you get to the pocket.
Coming up this weekend is kind of a more traditional thing compared to perhaps, another sport that we have on campus, the KCAC tournament, like we said, but it functions a little bit differently in the fact that there's no automatic berth for the champion to the NAIA, but there is still a tournament title on the line, and both of your teams will be defending their tournament titles from last year, the first year of it, so you're going into year two as the reigning champs on both sides. It's early days yet. Obviously, we just competed on Sunday in the last event, but how are you and the team feeling going into this tournament on Saturday?
I feel we have as good a chance as anyone. We've got a couple injuries we're trying to fight through. There's some sickness going around this campus, okay. and so we're right now I'm kind of up in the air on who's going or who's going to participate. So we'll just have to see what happens. I think everybody's going through the same thing at this time of the year. Everybody's banged up, so we'll just kind of see what happens when we get there. And it's a place we've never been to, so we don't have any familiarity with the bowling center.
I'm sure that's the case for just about everybody,
sure.
Then, right?
Sure. I mean, most of the coaches have been there.
Sure.
But as far as the players, no.
I hinted at this earlier, but it runs a little bit differently than the last couple of events that you guys have been to. So for the uninitiated, can you tell us how this weekend is going to work?
It's going to go 12 games of Baker, and then we'll break and do awards. And then it's just going to go to elimination matches, 1 bowls 4, 2 bowls 3, and then we'll get to a champion. So
it's just the 4 teams that are full members of the KCAC all in one place for just yourselves for the first time this year. It's
yes.
a KCAC only competition, which is kind of neat.
It is. It's cool that the 4 teams are there. It's a quick tournament. The kids always have a great time with it. At least we did last year.
No kidding.
So it's a fun tournament.
I don't want to put you on the spot here because we don't know how any of the machinations work or anything like that, but would you like to see an event like this get bigger and, in other words, have enough teams in the KCAC such that the KCAC tournament champions would get an automatic NAIA bid?
Well, I'd like to see this tournament that we're bowling this weekend go away. I'd like to see what we did this past weekend be the KCAC tournament, and we have, enough teams just to fill it with just KCAC teams, and so then we don't have to invite or have to deal with the GPAC and the AMC, because the teams that are in the GPAC and the AMC are, they're all pretty good, and so it just makes it harder for a KCAC team to get a spot in the NAI. As it turns out, we're last year we had two teams, both men and women, going to the NAI championships, and this year we don't. We don't have any. So I'd rather see that, and I know our commissioner would rather see that too.
No kidding. That was my follow-up. Was that's a guarantee at this point? Like, there's not a chance for anybody to get a late at-large into the NAIs. It's pretty much locked.
I think Ottawa women have a shot. I think they'll probably get an at-large bid.
But it's nothing guaranteed. Like
it's nothing guaranteed. But I think they're fifth in the rankings right now. So and the other teams ahead of them all won their spot. So I think that I think their shot is as good as anybody's to get in the NAI tournament, and they deserve it. They had a great year.
You think that maybe the NAI tournament itself may expand at any point, since we're getting more bowling programs over the course of the country?
I don't know. I really don't know. I'm not on that committee, so I don't know.
I certainly am not.
I'd like to see it expand. That'd be great if it did. But you got to, it's also a big expense for these schools to send their teams. And if it went, too big, it could last. It could turn into a super long tournament. So I think that's something to consider too. But I'd like to see more teams be able to go.
Your final tournament of the season coming up this weekend. What are you looking forward to once the season comes to a close?
Well, I'm still recruiting for next year and the year after, and looking to maybe take a couple days off and kind of regroup and recharge. I'm just looking forward to. I'm already looking forward to next season.
I know, we talk with all of our coaches about this, but it's something that I've learned so much since I've started working here is how year-long of a process recruiting, and more importantly, good, consistent recruiting is. And, you're building not just for this coming year, but for years past, as you just said. And that is something that you have been working really hard on over the last couple of months, because as you and I were talking a little bit about this weekend, this coming year will be year 4 for Avila Bowling, and will be your first, I don't want to say true senior class because I don't want to discount anybody that we've had over the last couple of years, but in the sense it'll be the bowling program's first true senior class. Yes. Because it'll be year 4 for so many of those guys especially, but guys and girls that once next year concludes at some point, they'll be done. And that's just kind of, it's hard for me to wrap my head around.
It is for me too, because I recruited those kids for our first year before we'd even thrown a ball, and they have stuck it out, and they've been through everything. So I'm gonna miss all of them, and next year's going to be kind of bittersweet.
It's just, I know it's even harder for you to fathom. I know because you're around them so much more than I am, but those were the founding members of the program, just like yourself, and they all came here to join your inaugural team. And obviously we're not there yet. We got another season to get through before that point, right? So I don't want to write any eulogies yet, but it's just it's fun to see this journey that you guys have put together, but then also seeing the work that you've already done to I don't want to say replace them, but to succeed them, because those spots will be available this time next year.
Yeah, there's we're losing what am I losing, 4 in 25? I'll be losing 4 of them, or 24. 4 men and 1 women from my original class. So it's it's going to be a lot tougher, and I need to fill those spots. There's going to be tough spots to fill.
Okay. Well, the final tournament of year 3 of Avila Bowling coming up this weekend. It's the KCAC Invitational Tournament in Junction City this Saturday afternoon. I'm sure we'll have plenty of updates on how to watch and follow along. As always, the team does a great job covering themselves and promoting themselves on social media, so stay tuned to Avila Bowling on Facebook and Instagram for further details on how to watch and follow the team this Saturday in Junction City, and we'll have updates for you, as always, on Avila Athletics on social media and avilaathletics.com. That is this Saturday in Junction City, Kansas, the KCAC Invitational Tournament, as both Avila bowling teams look to defend their tournament title. Coach Wolfe, thanks so much for being here.
You bet, Tim.
And congratulations on almost getting to the end of your 3rd season. We're proud of you. Good job.
Thank you.
That is head bowling coach Paul Wolfe. We'll be right back on Eye on the Eagles. Welcome back to this episode of Eye on the Eagles. We are live from Tanner's at Redbridge, just 5 minutes away from the Avila campus. Sports Information Director Tim Hackett, now joined by head women's basketball coach Remy Wolfe. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Tim.
Congratulations on officially reaching the conclusion of this season, your second season as our head coach.
Thank you.
I know it's a bittersweet time of year with the season still going on for some other teams, but how does it feel for you now that you officially made it to the end?
Yeah, bittersweet for sure. I mean, it was a good season. We learned a lot. We played some good basketball. A lot of close games at the end that kind of knocked us out of the running of making the conference tournament, but we were one game shy of making it there along with several other teams. So it was a good year. It was tough competition there in the middle of the pack in the KCAC. So it was fun. Learned a lot. Really great girls, really great players. So it's good.
That's really something that has become clear to me over the last couple of weeks, starting with y'all's win against Sterling a couple of weeks ago at maybe how close everything was in the conference. And that really bore fruit for you guys over the last couple of games because you're right there in every single one. And it just shows how competitive you guys were and how competitive, to me at least, the whole conference was, at least in this region of the final standings. Every game was close. You're in every game. And then it's one or two things go the other way. We're singing a different tune right now.
Right. Going down to the last couple weeks, we were in three-way tie, four-way tie, three-way tie, four-way tie, two-way tie. So we were always knotted up with someone, finished in a three-way tie or two-way tie. And, so coming down to the end there against Sterling, that was a huge win for us because they were one of the teams that were tied as well. And then we played a couple close games. Went down to Oklahoma Wesleyan, played a really close game without our starting post. Weren't able to get that one done. And then played Bethel to a very close game, 3-point game, and then Friends as well to a very close game, 4-point game, to wrap up the year. So that's what you got to prepare for. I mean, February is. It's the time to get down to it and make sure that you're dotting your I's, crossing your T's, and everything's lining up the way it's supposed to be. And we kind of had to deal with several injuries with our starting group in the month of February, which made it a lot tougher. And then also just didn't quite capitalize down at the end of the stretch. So
I think this just proves what you and I have been talking about on the show and off, really over since the start of the year. And as I keep saying, I feel like on just about every episode of the show, it's true for just about, if not all, sports in the KCAC this season, how close everything is. Yeah, you've got one or two, or in the case of women's basketball, 3 teams that are at the top, but it's not like they're nationally dominant or anything like that.
No.
They were Tabor, Friends, and St. Mary were all good this year, no question, but the conference itself was so close.
Yeah.
And you guys had some quality wins in there. Like every team had quality wins, it feels like.
Right.
So what I'm trying to say is that the fact that these final standings were so close is exactly what you and I were anticipating and predicting and discussing over the balance of the entire season. Feels like since November.
Yeah. I mean, it was incredibly close, and we were just one little piece away from jumping a whole bunch of spaces. And could be my rookie coaching, could be a missing piece on the squad, but we were right there. I mean, when you look down to it, we just played in Friends, number 3 team, lost to them by 4 at their place. Yeah. The number 4 team, we lost to them by 5 or 4 at their place. Number 6 or number 5, lost to them by 5 at their place. So it's like, it's not, like you said, it's a close league. And other than probably Tabor as a standout, everybody else was just very, very close within the league, and which is fun. It makes it a fun league. We probably had, I don't know, out of our 20-some games, I would say 15 without looking at any sort of stat. 22 games, conference, 15, 16, 17, maybe even 10 points or less separates a victory or a loss. I guess maybe around 15 of those games. But still, you can never, hardly ever say that with a conference season where you're not having several teams at the top half that are really, really dominant. And we have a good few teams, like you said, but night in and night out, we came to compete, and I think that's the most important thing that I'm proud of as their coach, is that we competed with a ton of really great teams, even down to the end, competing with Friends, who I think is an incredible team. Could definitely win the KCAC championship with the personnel that they have, and we took them to 4 points. And yeah, so I think, we have a solid league, and I think we competed really well this year, with only taking a couple bad losses, and bad to me, 15 or more points throughout the year, and that's a huge improvement from where we were last year. Obviously, wins and losses weren't like we were hoping, but the competitiveness and just the way that they played this year was fun to watch, really impressive to see, and makes you proud as their coach to see the growth that they've had. So I think we had to learn how to compete, and this year we had to learn how to win. Winning's tough, so we had to learn how to win and take some bumps along the way, and hopefully it'll help better prepare us for next season.
We were at softball on Saturday while you guys were at Friends, so I won't lie to you and say that I was actively watching opening tip to the final minute, but we turned the game on the scores table in the fourth quarter, and we were super proud of you guys and super impressed of what the team was doing against a quality team, one of the better teams in the KCACs. We just said we were I don't know how to say this, like we were locked into that game during softball, and Coach Kennedy's watching this. Sorry,
he understands,
but I'm sure he does, because I know that he was asking me about just what the situation was like. A lot of other coaches were asking me over the last couple of weeks, what are the standings like? What does the team have to do? Are we still in it? Type of thing. And I realized that in a perfect world, any of our teams would be like in the Friends situation and be, locked in top three, whatever, battling for a home game, whatever. But I can tell you, as a fan and as a supporter of yours and of the team, it was exciting to be part of that type of situation over the last couple of years, knowing that everything was so meaningful. I'm sure that the emotions were different since you had to live it a little bit more directly than I did. But it's not always something, and I know you could speak to this as well, it's not always something that we experience, not just with this program, but with our teams in general. We're thinking, all right, how can we punch up a couple of spots and get into that mix? There was no punching up needed. You guys were right in that mix for the entire time, and that was fun. The fact that it came down to the last couple of games of the season. Again, speaking candidly, maybe I'll get in trouble for saying this, it's not always something that we experience, and not something that every school experiences. So, again, I realize it was probably stressful to live it, but from my perspective and from my team's perspective, it was a fun thing to be a part of.
Yeah, that's what you play for.
Exactly.
That's why you do it. So to be in those situations, to play close games, to be in that environment, that's why you do what you do. And this time we came out on the wrong end, but learning how to do things the right way and how to be better for improvements next year is the important thing as well. And we'll grow from it, we'll learn from it, and hopefully when we're in those situations next time, then we'll come out on the other end.
The folks that work with me on game days, even if they don't watch any games that are road games or neutral games, they've seen at least a third of the games that your team played this year, and just about all of them told me, and I'm sure some of them told you as well, last Wednesday for our last home game, they all told me the growth that they saw, the improvement, passion, all of these words. So they were impressed. Again, I watched just about every minute of every game that I can, and the growth was evident to me as well, especially since there were so many younger players. Still just year two for you as our head coach, so things to grow into, if you will. But the fact that all of those folks who did not have to tell me any of that, they worked with me, but they would only say that if they believed it, and almost to a man, that's what they all said last Wednesday. So I think that reflects well on the job that you and the coaches and the girls did over the course of the year.
Well, thank you. You have an incredible staff, and I love talking to your staff, and they're awesome to me and to my team. And they definitely complimented us on the job that we've done this year and the way that we competed, and I am more than proud as their coach to see the way that they competed this year, and just felt like we were one of the teams, like we could do it, we had a chance, and we had more than a chance. We had tons of chances. But just, we didn't have that level of competition last year, and this year we did. And there wasn't a game that we went into that we didn't think we couldn't win. And that's really important for me to be able to say as a coach, because sometimes you go into games and you're like, this is going to be really, really tough for us to get a win out here. But we went in with every game and competed for a majority of the game, and that's the most important thing for me to see. And, yeah, just shows growth and shows where we're going and can go. So it's good to see.
I think that's an important thing to notice because can't say this directly because no one's told me this, but I can promise you there were some teams in our conference this year that did not feel that way going into every game, that they're going into a gym that day thinking, all right, we got a good chance to win, or we could or should win. I know that not every team felt that way, and that has not been the case for our team in the past because, as we've said, there have been some years where there have been, let's be honest, maybe just one or two really, really good teams at the top of the conference that would be hard for anybody to go in and thinking, feeling very good about their chances to win if we're being realistic.
Yeah.
But I think that is an important stepping stone growth point for you and for your team. If that's truly how you feel the course of the year, that played out over the course of the year with the number of close games that you were in, like you already pointed out.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, no doubt. I think this year especially, obviously Tabor, St. Mary's, incredible teams. We took a couple tough losses to them, and knowing, I'm not saying that we shoulda, coulda, woulda beat them, but just knowing that we can hang, we can compete, and we have the firepower to do so. So, yeah, that always makes you feel good as a coach going into it.
I think that's something that we've also heard from our coaches over the course of the season on this show, is that is obviously the goal for anybody would be to get to the top of the conference and to be the team that everybody's chasing down. But that doesn't happen instantly, and so you got to get up to that point. So if you're at that point where no one can take you lightly, and again, Tabor, St. Mary, Friends were all good teams this year, but I can't imagine that they were all going into games against you guys thinking, all right, we're going to win this game by 30, we don't have to do anything.
Right.
If they were, then they would have.
Hopefully not.
No, and if they felt that way, then they would have been mistaken, and especially as you guys proved last weekend against Friends, if that was their mentality, then they were sorely mistaken, and that, I think is an important stepping stone point for you guys going forward, that as you continue, hopefully to ascend to whatever the next level is. If that's the stage you guys are at this year, I think that's certainly, obviously I realize not where you ultimately want to be, but pretty good position to be in, all things considered.
Yeah, I mean, we finished right out of the top 8, so tied for 9 or whatever we did. Obviously not ideal.
Right.
But, I mean, a few corrections here or there, a few different wins here or there, and we're 5. Like, it's not like we're far out of the picture. And, I think it's just encouraging moving forward of showing what we can do and how doable that is in our league. We have a solid league, but definitely not a top half dominant league where no one can approach that like some leagues are, which makes it exciting, and it makes it fun to be a part of our KCAC group.
Let's talk individually. We don't know the full results. We can't share the full results of all conference and things like that just now as we have this conversation on Tuesday morning, so we won't spill any beans. But individually, I wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to shine some spotlights on some players that stood out this year. Let's just start bottom up. Your freshman guards. 3 of them this year, Mia Smith, but then also Aubrey Leiker and Marley Wright were, especially Marley, but Aubrey after, maybe the first month of the season, they were starters for the rest of the year, and those two brought different things to the table. Yes, they're 2 different types of players. They're 1 number off on the jerseys, but very different types of players. But, I mean, for them especially, I mentioned stuff that, my team was talking about, to me offhand after the game last Wednesday. The growth that those two showed as freshmen from game 1 to game 30 was noticeable, and those two were very important pieces of your puzzle for various different roles, but they were both very, very integral parts.
Yeah, I mean, my whole freshman group was great this year. Like you said, we started 2 of them for a majority of the year, Marley being the starting point guard. Aubrey, completely, she's just a workhorse. She was not in the starting lineup to start the year, but defensively and just at practice, she just continued to work her tail off every single day, and earned that starting spot, and was just the type of player, especially in practice, where you're like, okay, we need her on the floor. And she just makes a difference, especially on the defensive end. And she grew a ton this year, and I'm really excited to see how much she grows in this off season and during the summer, just because she's very raw, incredibly athletic, and she's just got a dog mentality, and that's fun. So she's definitely improved, and I just am really excited to see the growth that she shows over the next 3 years of her career. And then Marley, she's been great all year, starting as our point guard. Going into it, we were like, well, here we go, starting a freshman at point guard position. Not always ideal for the coach because that is very stressful to put it all in a freshman's hands. Not that she's not capable, and obviously she was capable because she did it, and she did it incredibly well. But just that jump. It's one thing to start a freshman, but at the point guard position where you're the coach on the floor, the leader on the floor, and you're the youngest person on the floor is incredibly tough, and I think she handled it very well. And, I mean, her stats speak for herself. She's just only going to continue to grow from here and has learned so much. And through the beginning of the year, we said, it's probably going to be a struggle, but we're just going to have to grind through it and try to help her as much as we can. And she struggled a little bit at the beginning, but is a tough enough kid to where she figured it out by the end of the year. And she was the one game we didn't have her, we struggled bad.
Sure.
So it was noticeable, and she's definitely a floor general and has learned so much this year at the point guard position. And like I said, her stats speak for herself. I think she should be a member of the all freshman team in our conference, loaded freshman team, loaded freshman in this conference this year, but Marley is one who would be deserving of that. She was third leading rebounder, third leading scorer, led the team in assists, top 5 in the conference in assists, number 4 in assists as a freshman. Obviously, she's a point guard, but as a freshman point guard, top 4 after we got 14 teams. They all have point guards.
Right.
So, she was great. And steal-wise, she led us in steals, blocks, all the things. I think, no doubt, I would not be surprised if that kid has a triple-double sometime in her career because of the way she is all over the floor.
He was close more than once this year.
More than once. She fills that stat sheet. And it's a subtle 10, 12, 14 points and a subtle 9 rebounds. And then all of a sudden you got 8 assists, and you're like, all right, she's darn near a triple-double, and no one even knew. So next year I think she could do it. She was very close several times this year, which is really cool to see a player to potentially have them at a triple-double type of level in game, because that's just impressive that you're got your hand in so much and impacting the team so many positive ways. But, yeah, those kids love my freshman group. I'm super excited for all of them coming back. They're very motivated. They work incredibly hard, and I think the sky's the limit for those 3. So
on the flip side, you've got a couple of 4-year seniors on the squad. We'll talk about the one added member of that later, but these are players that have been with you and me to an extent for 4 years, and it's always it's been fun for me this year 4 for me here at Avila to help bring. Again, I've only a tangential part in doing this, but we've been together this whole time, and seeing them finish off their college careers as athletes and as students, it's been fun to see. And I just know both Daisy and Cece pretty well at this point just based on our relationship. But it's fun. It was fun to see them finish off their careers this year, and I know that you've been with them this whole time. So through various roles, obviously, but. Those have been 2 staples of this program for the last couple of years through thick and thin.
Definitely, yeah. I think today's day and age, with all the transferring that you got going on, I think it's awesome and a statement to who they are as people, that they made it through for 4 years, one of them being the COVID year, which is difficult in itself. But the roles they played the last couple years and the way they stuck it out for 4 years, and the growth that those 2 specifically have shown on and off the floor is what's the most important and most impressive thing to me, is just that I know both of them will be great women leaders in whatever field that they choose, and They were both shy little freshmen coming in, and I think just the growth that they have shown as leaders on the court, in the locker room, amongst the girls on the team, they've just really, really done a good job and have just shown, a lot of potential in what they can do in life, and they're both now ready to move on to their specific fields, and I couldn't be more excited for them and just thankful of the time that they spent with our team and the impact that they've had on my life and the girls' lives. So they've been awesome, and I love both of them to death and wish them nothing but the best.
The other main returner that we knew about coming in, somebody that you profiled to us on our first conversation with you on the show this year, somebody that we knew would have a central role, was Hannah Smith. And, I mean, no surprise that you were accurate in that assessment because she was a staple. After a little bit of a slow start, as you and I documented on this show, offensively, she really picked it up and had a hot middle part of the season. And, like I said, was just a reliable go-to source for you all year long, which was exactly what we expected.
Yeah, I mean, Hannah Smith's very reliable. We knew it. We trusted it. And she ended up having a really good year, finished top 5 in threes. 3-point percentage, 3-point made per game overall. So she ended up doing really well for us, had a lot of big games for us, carried us more than one time, numerous times throughout the year, and just did what Hannah Smith does best. She lit it up. She's awesome kid, works hard, and super thankful to have her on the team as well. Thankful for her senior year coming up, that we still get to keep her one more year. Again, hopefully, I mean, I think that senior mentality going into it is always something different, knowing you only got 1 year left. Sure. So I'm expecting her to have a really good year next year, and I love watching her play, so I'm excited that I get to be along for the ride and get to watch firsthand what she does out there.
Statistically, I feel Madeline Melton was not somebody that jumped off the page at me initially, but we know that obviously there's a lot more than just basic counting stats. Aubrey's a prime example of that. But as the year went on and Madeline started to have big offensive and rebounding games, that is when it finally jumped out to me and to my team. And again, talking about just, what people notice as the year goes on. Like, I heard multiple people say, like, wow, Madeline she's somebody that really jumped out as the year went on, not just as, a player, if you will, but as a featured player with everything that she was able to do. I would say, especially over the second half of the season, it was somebody who was really, really impressed, not just me, but a lot of other people. And it feels like not just a building block, but a cornerstone going forward after what she did the last half of the year.
Yeah, she's been very impressive. She went through a little slump towards in the second semester there. She was pretty frustrated with herself, but was still putting up fine numbers, good numbers. And she's consistently been nearly a 50% field goal shooter the whole entire year, and that's impressive. Obviously, she's a post player, but she shoots a lot outside as well. So to maintain a 50% average for the year is impressive, to say the least. And what she does on the rebounding end as well. She had a game with 17 boards, 2 games with 25-plus points. And, yeah, again, sky's the limit for her, too. She took a year off last year, so this year was her first year coming back. A year with no basketball, essentially. And so I think starting out was kind of finding her way and where she fit. And we were figuring out where she fit best offensively and things like that. And so thankful that she's just a sophomore, because her jump shot is unlike many.
No kidding.
It's very, very impressive. So yeah, sky's the limit for her, and just kind of I'm really excited to get an off season with her to see how we can improve and things we can specifically work on, because she's a workhorse as well, and she's super talented naturally. So just hopefully we can get her playing in a good role for her to get the most out of what she can do next year, and really looking forward to her. There's tons of upside to what she has and what she's capable of. So she was huge for us, and like you said, when other people weren't scoring, she was, and she was a big piece in a lot of our wins. throughout the year. So our one game that we lost down the road is when she was out with a concussion. And if we would have had her, we got into super bad foul trouble with our post players and ran out of post players. And she is definitely our go-to post player. And if we would have had her, I think it would have been a little bit different. But nothing you can do about it. Right. So. Yeah.
And finally, there was nothing that a lot of people could do about Hannah Pinkston this year. I'm not even sure I know the full story about how you got her here to continue that little Truman State pipeline that you've been building over the last couple of years, starting with yourself, I guess. But
right.
It was clear very early on that she would become that go-to player, a player that everybody else would give the ball to make something happen. We saw, obviously with Maddie a couple of years ago was that type of player, sometimes because she had to be. But Hannah took on that role a lot over the course of the year in different roles, different score lines, whatever. But it was clear to me, home and road games, there's a lot of situations where, all right, we need something good to happen offensively or defensively or even in transition. Let's give HP the ball and let her make something happen. Let her tap into that mentality, that experience. And more times than not, it felt like she delivered. She was just that type of a steadying force for you guys this year.
Yeah. Hannah was great. Like you said, the Truman State pipeline that we have going, getting her from Truman, she was another one who was done, similar to my sister, who was done playing basketball and knew she wanted to get her master's and was kind of unsure of where she wanted to do that, what she wanted to do, and we presented the opportunity for her to get her master's here at Avila and play one more year, and I think she decided it was worth it because she felt good about playing for me and my sister Tiffany. But I love Hannah. I've known her since she was a freshman at Truman. I actually recruited her at Truman as well. So I had that relationship built already as a coach player, recruiting her there at Truman, starting her junior year of high school, I think. But, yeah, we were super fortunate to have her for her last year. She impacted the floor offensively, defensively, all over the place. She was great. I think she had all these stats are fresh in my mind because we just had our all-conference meeting. But she had 20 double-digit games out of our 28 or 30. And 5-6 double-doubles. Leading rebounder for the whole year. Played a guard at Truman State, leading rebounder for us for the whole year, without a doubt, and leading scorer for the whole year. Her and Hannah Smith are kind of neck and neck in the scoring, but she was our leading scorer for the entire year and had a lot of really big games, had a lot of quiet scoring nights, if you will, where Hannah ended up with 18. We didn't know she had 18. Like she did a lot of the dirty work and was again just another person who just worked really hard for whatever the team needed done. Several games she had 6-7 assists and just, again, creating shots for other people, dominating on the boards, outworking the other people that she was playing, and then could get it done in the scoring column as well. I think one game she had 14 in one quarter and just we were down, all of a sudden we went up and Hannah was going off and we were like, all right, there's Hannah. But yes, anytime we needed a bucket down the stretch or just in a scoring drought, we typically would go to HP and just let her do her thing, let her go score at the rim. She typically had a mismatch against the person that was guarding her, so we try to capitalize on that a lot. And just another really awesome kid that we were just super, super thankful to have as someone in our program and great leader. It's tough coming in as a graduate senior with 1 year to go and getting the respect of your teammates, and especially when you play a lot of minutes, expecting them to look up to you when some of them have been there for 2, 3, 4 years and you're just this new kid on the block. But she's a great kid, earned that respect. And I think that speaks a lot to who she is as a person, her character, and the way she works. She outworks everybody in any gym pretty much every day. So she's a great kid, and again, another one who's gonna do amazing things in her field of interest, and looking forward to following what she does in the future. So
I feel it's hard for people in my position sometimes to know everybody's backstory on every team, especially because sometimes that information is not, very public or shared with us or whatever the case may be. So, if there's somebody else in the conference who, has a Division I or Division II background and maybe it was, 2 or 3 schools ago and it doesn't show up immediately on a roster, it's not something that you would know just looking at something briefly, or if you just see them, in one game, you don't know everything that they've been through, everywhere that they've been, type of deal. Thinking of somebody, like Paige Penley at St. Mary, for one example. If you don't know her backstory, you don't know everywhere that she's been over the course of her career. You look at her and you say, well, good player, and then it's like, well, makes sense where some of the places that she's been in her career. I had somebody tell me after a road game, and I won't call them out directly any more than this, but they called me afterwards and like, man, Hannah Pinkston, good player. I said, yeah, that's probably why she was at Truman State. Kind of makes sense. It's evidence that they've got some of that talent. Obviously, something we saw out of Tiff here a couple of years ago. It's like, obviously has some skill, obviously having some experience, obviously have some talent. It's like that, that's helped them start off their college career somewhere else, and they're just finishing it here. So that was funny to me that we had this conversation. It's like, well, I knew that about Hannah, but not everybody does. And it's like, well, man, clearly she's got some talent. Well, I said,
we got lucky to finish it up. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I feel like every sports adjacent show that I've watched, podcast, radio, television, whatever, over the last week has broached this subject. So we'll broach it for 2 minutes, then I won't put any more pressure on you. You know exactly where I'm going with this. What are your thoughts on court storming?
That's just because I asked you about that before.
Well,
this started.
Yeah, exactly. So you teed me up. That's fine. I'll feed you the rock.
Oh man, I don't know. I think. I don't know if you can completely stop it. I don't think that's something that we'll have to deal with. Maybe we will. Shoot, you never know.
We saw that at last JV
that's right.
men's game.
We did at the JV men's game. Yeah, we
an
had
abbreviated version.
We had a few people storming. Yes, yeah, exactly.
They're all our players, but
could be. Yeah, like that one. There was a court storming. Like
the one
man.
person.
Yes, exactly. Who went on the
Detroit.
court.
We love Detroit Mercy on this show.
Yes, Detroit Mercy. Yeah, exactly. But I don't know if you'll completely be able to stop it. Do I think something needs to be done about it? Probably so, because you are seeing players who get knocked down, get hurt, and it can and it will affect someone seriously pretty soon, I am sure. Even more so than the couple that have recently been hurt. But a coach, a manager, a trainer, a player, I don't think it really matters. But I think that schools and people need to do a little bit more to prevent that from happening, and just, as much as you can do to prevent it. I don't know how much you're going to be able to do to stop them from flooding the court when you have that many kids and people excited about it. But especially before the game is over, I think that's the biggest thing, is that technically that's a technical foul and 2 shots for the other team. So if fans are not aware of that and officials are trying to just get out of there as well, especially in some of these close games, that can make a huge difference. And me as the coach, the opposing coach, I'd be pretty upset about it. And again, that's just, we just got to do a better job of controlling it. And I don't know what the step is. I think most people are like, ban it right now, but I don't know how you decide to just ban it and expect it to happen.
No argument for me on that one. It's not going to just happen immediately.
Yeah, and when you have that many people trying to rush the court, I don't know what you do about it. So, they've tried fining schools. They've tried, doing various things, and it still continues to happen. But, yeah, I don't know.
On a more concrete note, KCAC tournament starts this week. We've got the NAIA tournament after over the following couple of weeks. How much do you plan to watch the postseason? How much have you watched the postseason over the course of your time here to see what some of those top teams in the country, top teams in the conference, what they look like, what they do in the postseason when games matter the most? How much do you plan to watch and try to glean something from that?
Oh, I definitely will be tuned in, especially the KCAC tournament. I'm very interested in our conference tournament and really look forward to watching that. Have some good teams, but again, like we've been talking about this whole show, our league is incredibly close. So Tabor seems like a favorite, but I would not be surprised if there's someone there that you don't expect to see there in the slightest bit. So I think it'll be
last year.
St. Mary and Friends played in it last year, and it was the 5 versus 7 in the conference championship. So, and this year is even more up in the air.
Agreed.
And you just got one game. So if you got a bad shooting night or something like that, anybody could win. So I would expect to see a lot of upsets, especially round one. I mean, I think it starts right there, and I don't know how many top seeds are going to maintain their top seed after Wednesday. So that'll be fun tournament to watch. And then NAI tournament, I'll pay attention to that as well. With the format that they got right now, it's a little bit harder to pay attention to everybody.
Yeah, no doubt.
But the top teams in our conference especially, I'll pay attention, as we'll get for sure 2 people in there to watch. So, yeah, and we played a couple of teams the last couple years who are going to be in the national tournament, just in our area, and the GPAC and the conferences that are in our region. So I'll definitely be tuned in to watch those teams play too.
Yeah, I'll be at the championship Monday next week, and I would be very surprised if both games, men's and women's, are both 1 seed versus 2 seed.
Oh,
I feel like that's
I would bet
extremely
money
unlikely.
that it won't be.
I would imagine we would see even a high number in there
Yes.
for at least one, if not both of those games. Like I said, I'd be very surprised if both are 1 versus 2. They very well could be, but I would be very surprised if both are.
It hasn't been in
Right.
the last several years. So.
And that is, it's a great point, because that is something that is different about this sport, men's and women's basketball, the 2 sports, but the 1 game, compared to some other sports in our conference, even though in what we've already seen it this school year, very close regular season, tight final standings, etc., and then the tournament runs chalk. You've got 1 versus 2 or 2 versus 3 maybe in the tournament championship. Seen that a lot in volleyball over the last couple of years. Men's and women's soccer are a totally different animal, because Oklahoma Wesleyan is just usually so much better than everybody else. But that's not always the case in men's and women's basketball. I think men's is often 2 versus 3 is what we get in there, but it's rarely 1 versus 2, and that just proves again to me how competitive this league is, which I think is exciting.
Oh yeah, I think that's basketball as a whole. I mean, basketball is super exciting, and obviously I'm biased. But you never know what's going to happen. That's why they call it March Madness. That's why everybody loves March Madness, is because there's upsets every night, and it's a game of runs. And if you're on the wrong side of the run at the wrong time, then you're losing the game, because there's not enough time in the game. But yeah, so I can't wait. March is my favorite time of year, so I'm super excited about it.
We are too. And speaking of Championship Monday, next week on Eye on the Eagles will be a special edition of the show live from Hartman Arena on Championship Monday. We didn't get to do the show on Monday this week because we had softball on campus, so we moved to Tuesday this week. We will be back next Monday, that's March 4th, for a special edition of Eye on the Eagles live from Hartman Arena ahead of Championship Monday, which is next Monday night. But it's time to be announced, but you can watch our show, same channel, right here on the Avila Sports Network and later on YouTube from Hartman Arena sometime next Monday. Times and guests still to be announced, but that is our current plan. That is head women's basketball coach Remy Wolfe. Congratulations on completing your 2nd season. We're proud of you.
Thanks, Tim.
And thanks for joining the show. Thank you for watching this episode of Eye on the Eagles. Thanks, as always, to Tanner's here at Red Ridge for hosting us. We'll see you next week at Hartman Arena for our special edition of Eye on the Eagles. Until then, for all of us here at Avila Athletics, I've been Tim Hackett. We'll see you next week. Until then, so long.